right. We had a guest pastor that was going to be coming to give the invocation and apparently got held up somewhere, but we're here. Chief, is he here? Just in case. I don't know if he's just like right there or nobody here at all. Sam, can you see if there's somebody coming in right there?
Someone is coming in, but I don't know if it's the person.
No, it does not appear. Okay, well, it is what it is. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Helotes City Council. It's March 10th, 2022. The time is 7 p.m. And one last comer? No, it's Chief. All right. Well, we gave it our best shot right there. If you go ahead and stand with me, we'll have the invocation, Councilmember Massey, and then we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear Lord, thank you for this day, and thank you for all those who are in attendance. Bless our staff and our elected officials, and give us wisdom as we, for all the decisions that we have to make tonight. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. All right. Well, thank you everybody for coming out to be a part of our city council meeting. At this point, we're going to open the citizens to be heard. You have 3 minutes to speak, and we have just one person signed up at this point. It would be Mr. Jonathan McCord. Please state your name and your address for the record.
Jonathan McCord, 1149 Baxtershire in the Beverly Hills subdivision. Good evening, sir, members of council. Here representing Beverly Hills. First, I wanted to say thank you for the efforts so far with trying to keep our neighborhood roads more private. What happened in Brycewood with the emergency gate, everyone in the community appreciates the efforts that was made. We understand that Davis Ranch, as they grow and they're moving forward, they would like to use part of the community as an egress. And we understand that it's outside of council's jurisdiction, but we understand that you also are aware of it, and anything that you can do and are doing, we appreciate. The community is very small. The roads are dark, no sidewalks, so increased traffic could be dangerous to the community. So we just wanted to acknowledge what you have done so far, anything that you're working on in the future, and that your efforts are not going unnoticed for us. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right, we have anybody online signed up? No? Okay. Well, that'll close our citizens to be heard. At this point, we're looking for a motion and a second for consent agenda items number 3 and 4.
Sir, I move we approve consent agenda items 3 through 4.
I second.
Sanders and Salzar. Okay, with no discussion needed, does anybody want to poll an item? Okay. All in favor of approving consent agenda items number 3 and 4 is written, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. This brings us to the mayor's report. Want to give you an update. We do now have a piece of good news. We do have a joint use agreement with Marketplace at Old Town Helotes. We have a signed contract, come to some amicable terms, and Marketplace will continue as it has been. So tragedy averted. All parties are happy and within bounds of what was allocated for that contract. We do have registration for the 55th Annual Helotes Carnival Parade. That's being held Saturday, April 30th, 2022. Anybody wants to be in that, please register. You can do that right here at City Hall. You got information right on our webpage as well, too. At this point, it would be my distinct honor to call up Sergeant Donnie Palacios and Officer Eric Noble, as we have 2 awards to pass out to them. As a firefighter for San Antonio, I can tell you that we often have to go in the heat of battle and go in and effect rescues. And that's a job we sign up for. Not entirely the job that the police signs up for. They are a special breed, do all the things that firefighters don't want to do. And it takes 2 different types of people to be able to provide public safety. And I'm forever thanking the police officer. We had a house fire here that total loss.
It was my family.
It was your family?
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're here. And you're,
Honored awards.
Absolutely, it was a big house fire that was a total loss. And, are we on here? Okay. And there were animals and a human rescue here. A father-in-law, correct?
We would try to resuscitate my dog and save him. And Officer Noble ran into a burning house. Get my husband out. But then we brought our own family. Just our husband's a retired cop. And I'm retired EMS. And we get tunnel vision. And it's so true. It's the same when other people run out. We're the ones running in. And they ran in as heroes. And I got my biggest assets out, my kids. And although we're sad for many pets that were lost, we're grateful for the ones that survived. And there's no way to possibly thank them for what they've done. And I know what it is because we were in the field. I did it for 16 years. That was my career. I've been to many house fires. My family is so grateful, and I also need to let everybody know that I probably wouldn't have gotten this far if it wasn't for the support of this community. We are so taken back. The generosity, the compassion, empathy from people I've never even met. It really makes you humble, and I've only cried tears of appreciation and gratitude. I have not cried once for the house, because I don't really care. I'm just thankful everybody got out safe, including our rescue.
I don't think there's any words that I could say that would top that. So we'll go ahead and just read this off. Thank you very much for coming, and I appreciate this community has a long history of coming to each other's aid, and it's one of the things that makes me proud to be a Helotesian. This is the Award of Valor. It says, in recognition of performing life-saving measures in response to a residential structure fire on February 19th, 2022. Your actions reflect the highest standards of conduct for a law enforcement officer. Thank you for going above and beyond to protect and to serve the city of Helotes. Sergeant Donnie Palacios. And Officer Eric Noble. Well done. Oh, thank you. All right. That brings us to item number 6. Looking for a motion and a second to discuss and take action on item number 6 is written.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we discuss and take action on agenda item number 6.
Sanders, second by
I'll second.
Merchant.
So I didn't know if there was going to be a presentation. You guys generally come up and give it like an overview?
Yes. Good evening, Mayor, Council. Wonderful to be here this evening. And I know you've got your bound audit reports hopefully there in front of you. However, at the risk of making you flip through a bunch of pages, I thought a brief PowerPoint might be easier to just kind of give the summary and highlights of this year's audit. Selena, if you'll go ahead. This first slide is just some of the required communication that we like to go over with you each year. We did issue what's called an unmodified opinion. That means that the financial statements that are prepared internally by management were materially and accurately stated. We do have our typical audit adjustments that we propose each year, but we didn't feel that anything was indicative of any kind of concerns or errors that were not being reported correctly. I also wanted to point out that the audit for the year ended September 30, 2020, actually was submitted to the to the Government Finance Officers Association for the award for Certificate in Excellence in Financial Reporting, and you all received that award. So I'm very excited to report that it's always based on the previous year's audit. And I know that it is management's plan to submit the FY21 audit as well to see if that award is continued for this upcoming year. Next up, we have our estimates. I'm not going to go through those individually. They're the same estimates that we've had in the past. The only reason why I like to mention them at all is just to let you know that as auditors, we are overlooking what is being estimated and to determine whether or not there's any manipulation or room for manipulation by management to try to better state or worsen the picture of what the city's financials are. And most of the estimates that are included or embedded within the financial statements are really even determined by the Texas Municipal Retirement System rather than city management at all. And then also we had no findings or suggestions for improvement based on our review of your internal controls. And finally, here on this slide, we also point out that you were in compliance with the Public Funds Investment Act. So just some overall big picture highlights. We're required to present the audit in 2 different types of financial statements. This first one is called the government-wide statements, and it's because it includes the entire city, not just the general fund. So it is all funds of the city, and it also converts the city's financial from more of a governmental look to more of a business type look. And so by doing so, you add in all of your capital assets, which would include your infrastructure, your equipment, your buildings, and everything less that depreciation. It also pulls in all of your long-term liabilities, including the future payments on your certificates of obligation, as well as your retirement liability for the unfunded portion of all the future payouts to the retirement system. So when looking at that, you can see that the city's total assets was $20.1 million. Of that, about 45% of it is what you would invest in within your buildings, equipment, infrastructure, and that's about $9 million. After your total liabilities, and again, remember that is all long-term liabilities as well, of $11.7 million, that leaves you with essentially a net position of $8.3 million. Now, within that net position, that's kind of an all-inclusive fund balance, if you will. You do have a deficit in your unrestricted net position. That's not uncommon because essentially that unrestricted is picking up all of those long-term liabilities that you know you have future tax dollars coming in upcoming years to help pay for those liabilities. And in fact, that deficit actually was only 934,000 as of September 30, 2021, compared to just 1 year prior where it was about 2.5 million. So the city actually showed a positive increase in that net position of about 3.2 million. And again, remember that's more of on a business-like conversion as opposed to a governmental presentation. So now just to kind of present some similar numbers, but just specifically just for the general fund, this is now taking out those business type conversions, and this is much more of how you would budget. So the general fund did have assets of 6.1 million. After liabilities and deferred inflows of 3 million, that leaves you with about a 3.1 million fund balance. The majority of your fund balance is considered unassigned, meaning it can be spent on any future operation or maintenance type of expenses. And that actually represents about 5.6 of your average operating expenditures, 5.6 months, excuse me, of average operating expenditures. And also what is usually recommended is somewhere between 2 to 5. And so you can see, and that actually is up from about, I believe, 3.2 from the previous year. So quite an increase from 1 year to the next in the number of months you had on hand. So the overall increase in fund balance for this year was 1.3 million. And so just to kind of see it from a graphical perspective, you can see here the yellow is your budget, the red is your actual, and it's exactly the way you would hope it would line up. Your revenues exceeded what you had anticipated in your final budget. Your expenditures fell just below what you had anticipated in your final budget. Hold on. And then also some just historical picture. Then you can see from the 2019 year versus the 2020 and the 2021. You can see that your revenues by far continue to increase. And the primary reason for that, just this year alone, and is the same reason why your revenues had exceeded the budget so much on the previous slide, is primarily related to your sales tax. Your budget was about 5.1 million for sales tax. Your actual came in at 5.8 million. And that's after any remaining payouts according to your 380 development agreements. So that is the net that is kept by the city. And just in comparison to the previous year, your sales tax was about, or excuse me, your total taxes in the prior year was about 5 million. And so that was an increase in your sales tax in 1 year of over 500,000. So quite a nice increase. Again, sticking with those 3-year comparison and as far as your change in fund balance, you can see that your change went from a negative to a slight positive in last year to quite a nice increase in fund balance this year. And again, the majority of that is coming in from your increase in your increase in sales tax. You also received some grant revenue this year. I did want to touch on that briefly. The grant revenue that was received related to the CARES Act, that is recognized as revenue. However, the other, the secondary funding that was called the American Recovery Plan, and those funds were received as far as money. The first half was received before the fiscal year end. However, since they had not yet been spent as of September 30, they are not even reflected in these fund balance numbers, that those dollars had been deferred and they'll be recognized in the future year as those funds are spent out. And then one last slide here for you. I also like to always try to give you a picture of what that unfunded pension liability is from the Texas Municipal Retirement System. This is actually based on the calendar year because that's the fiscal year that the TMRS system uses. So you can see that you are very well funded as well there. Of course, the city is just making those monthly contributions as directed by TMRS. But you can see that from 18 to 20, your percent funded increased by about 10%. And so therefore, your unfunded liability has dropped from just under $1 million to just under 300,000. So quite a nice trend there as well. And I know that was a whole lot of information and a whole lot of data, but if there's any questions I can answer for you, I'd be happy to address those. Yes, sir.
So I think last year when you guys gave your audit report, and I can't remember who on council asked the question, so I'm going to ask the same thing, see if and I think you hit the number, but I was having a hard time seeing your slides. I just got bad eyes. When we talk about the percentage, right, of what we should have in the reserves, I think somebody asked that question last year. Did you hit the number to say that we're trending in the right direction?
Yes, sir. So you currently have about 5.6 months of your average operating expenditures. And I should have looked that up today. I believe it was about 3.2 months last year. So it did, of course, increase this year. And the general recommendation is 2 to 5 months.
Okay. Well, that's great to hear, because I know that's the strategy of all the leadership in the city, right, is to increase that. So we're doing what we plan to do. That's good.
Yes, sir.
So I did actually, thank you very much. It was about 3.1 last year this time. It had gotten down to as low as 2.4, I believe, there in May, 2.5, somewhere there. And now we're actually 5.6 at the end of our fiscal year, but we're actually more about 5.7 as of right now, so we're moving in the right direction. I did want to ask you your opinion. I went to, in October, I went to the ICMA, which is the International City Managers Association meeting. It was, conference was held in, their annual conference was actually in Portland, Oregon. And they talked about reserves. There they use the magic number 0.16.
Wow.
Right, that's the, which basically means 6 months worth of reserves. And they did a fairly lengthy presentation on that, particularly in the light of an increasing environment of unknowns, that 6 months was always the standard, but not necessarily, the smaller your city, probably the larger number you would really want to have. The feedback I got there was a target of 8 would be not an unreasonable goal. Would you agree with that assessment, at least in principle, in general terms?
In principle, yes, I guess I can see where that leadership and direction would be saying that. The only thing I can think of is, as far as Helotes specifically, I feel like your revenue stream is just continued to go up over the last several years. One of the tables presented in the audit report is the last 10 years of your revenue by source. Just kind of an interesting table if you want to look at that. That's towards the back of the report. So it's certainly, your revenues have continued to go up, even in a global pandemic. It still didn't seem to be affected. And the only other thing as far as expenditures, I feel like in a smaller city, there's a lot better control and direction over the spending of those expenditures. Whereas in a larger city, I can see where something unexpected could pop up much quicker. So that's the only reason I think I would tend to disagree a little bit, just that I think a smaller city has better control over what they're dealing with.
Of course, it better prepares us for expanding public services.
Sure.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your report.
My pleasure.
I believe we have an action item here to accept this report. Anybody have any additional questions or comment?
I just wanted to say, it was nice to read in the report too, that this was the first time that the city got recognized. What was it again? The Certificate of Achievement of Excellence in Financial Reporting. And so.
There she is.
So I know.
Tabby, would you please stand up? This is our head of finances. She is tireless. This award is a direct result of her endless hours of keeping everything straight between about 150 different bazillion counts. And though I've got my degree in finance, I am very thankful I don't have to do what you do. All right. Well, with no further comments, all in favor of adopting and accepting our CAFR, item number 6 is written, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right. Thank you for coming. Okay, looking for a motion and a second to discuss and take action on item number 7 is written.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we discuss and just take action on item number 7 as written.
Okay, Master. Second by
I'll second.
just a few words here before we jump in here with some questions, just to give a little bit of background. We did put out an RFP for waste management, I shouldn't say waste management, that's the name of the company, but for our refuse and recycling. And these are the proposals that came in, a hefty amount of reading, which we dissected through, staff and myself read through this and did a lot of analysis and a lot of grading, and got down to the staff, but it was not a quick nor easy analysis nor decision. So a lot of thought went into it. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over. Councilmember?
Yes, so I read through this, and I do have a few questions. One of the questions was the group of you who looked through this and made the proposal for C6. There was an alternative number 2 regarding the brush pickup, and I think that had always been an issue in previous councils. And the suggestion was, or the proposal is, to have 6 brush pickups and 6 bulk pickups, but they would be by appointment kind of thing. So I just wanted to have a little bit more information on how that would work. From what I understand, bulk would be 1 month, and then the next month would be both, and there would be standard months for the, but if someone wanted brush picked up, because not everyone's going to have brush out at, 6 times a year. So I was wondering how that would work. Would the individual, the resident, have to call or email or text, or how would they let the C6 know?
So to be certain, we are going to do a little bit of public education, and we'll invite George up to speak if you want to address some of these questions. But we will, it is a new contract. There are new dynamics involved with this, and part of that is brush. We do actually have weekly brush pickup. If you have small bundles, they'll pick up the brush as it is and throw it in the back of their garbage trucks. That will continue to be able to do small bundles that are tied up so they can be easily picked up. I believe less than 50 pounds, right?
Yes.
Okay. On top of that, we will have every other month will be either bulk pickup, like a washer machine or a box spring, and the next month will be brush up to 12 cubic yards, which is pretty decent. 6 foot high, 6 foot wide, about 12 foot long, to give you a visualization of that. We'll put out a schedule, and so the schedule will be like, for example, I live in Iron Horse, and Iron Horse will be the 3rd week of every month, for example. So every month on the 3rd week, which I believe will be on Wednesdays as well too, right, as opposed to the regular garbage collection days, they'll come around and they'll pick up brush on January, bulk pickup on February, brush in March, bulk pickup. Now, that's the generic schedule. So each community, some communities will be the 1st week, some communities will be the 2nd week, some communities the 3rd and the 4th week, so that it's distributed across the month. That will be a set schedule. So wherever you live, you'll have a set schedule. You're either 1st week, Beverly Hills may be 1st week, Iron Horse may be 3rd week, Cedar Springs may be the 2nd week, and that's your week. What this appointment is that if you have something, because not everybody's going to have refrigerators to throw out every other month, right? But you have a refrigerator to throw out, and you're the 3rd week, we ask you to call up to C6 and say, hey, listen, I'm going to have this, my address, and maybe you're calling on the 1st week, and you're actually the 3rd week. They'll say, okay, according to your address, you're actually the 3rd week, so just have it out on the 3rd week, and we'll be by to pick it up. They'll put it on their schedule, and so they'll know for sure. Somebody calls in, they're going to come in and they're going to look at the whole community just in case somebody else stuck something out there because they saw you stick something out, so they'll pick up whatever's out there. But if nobody from your community calls because nobody has anything to pick up, then they're not going to, there's no reason to come scour your community. So it's important, it's a little bit of a new habit, but it is also an additional service because now you don't have to wait 6 months to get rid of the box spring that you just replaced. The most you would have to wait would be, every other month, right?
Okay. I can just see that it's going to definitely, we're going to have to let the citizens know how this is going to work in a very, very proactive way, because I can see this kind of not working initially, or it's going to be a little difficult. But I think I think it's a good idea. you know, and we are adults and we should be able to handle this. The other thing I wanted to ask was about the proposed fees for the roll-off services. Now, please help me understand this. A roll-off service is where you want other stuff taken from your house? Is that what a roll-off service is?
The roll-off, Councilman Massey, is the construction and demolition debris dumpsters that you see, the very large ones. And
Right.
so those are generally used by, sometimes a resident will use them. Most of the time, they're used by your contractors that are coming into town to do work. Sometimes they're used by businesses when they're doing some type of cleanup. But that's typically the roll-offs are not something that we generally see for just somebody wanting to do a cleanup.
Residential pickup?
Right, right. But it can, if they need it and they require it, we have the different sizes and they'll be available for that.
So like if you're gonna build something, a pool in your backyard and there's gonna be a lot of debris, you might order a roll-off.
So the developers or someone who's building out here, they have to go through C6 then?
Yes, it's part of
It's
the
part of the
franchise
contract.
agreement for the city.
Okay, okay. And so, because I know we've had some complaints of citizens wanting, like you said, building some construction and they're adding a room or say, and they had all this extra stuff and they didn't realize, and this is another thing where they needed to be communicated, that they had to go to C6 to get this service.
Right.
And then, the other thing was the cost of the price. They said, oh, well, I can get it cheaper with this other company. Why do I have to pay for this? So I understand too, because of the contract and because you've given us a very good rate for all of the services, that's just something, I'm not exactly sure how competitive this rate is for if another company came in to do that.
So he wouldn't know because he doesn't have access to it at this point, but we do. It was competitive pricing. I will say this, that when I first got elected, I got a number of phone calls. Some of our beloved frequent callers on this particular issue. And what it turned out is they said, okay, well, this was C6's price. And then I went out and got this price. I said, okay, well, let's investigate that because we want to incorporate that in our RFP. And what it turned out was they were looking at C6's total price, which includes the initial delivery, the rental, the pickup, and the disposal, the per ton disposal. That was this price. And they were looking at the rental price or the initial delivery price. And by the time they added in those other prices, it ended up being very competitive, if not more expensive than that. So that is, we look at the full complete price, not just delivery, not just dollars. And to tell you the truth, each bidder, they might have, the rental might be higher, but the initial delivery was lower, and somebody else's initial delivery was higher, but the rental was lower, and some debris prices actual were all over the place as well too. So it really had to be looked at and scored as an in total price. And to be certain, there is some interesting calculus that goes into this in order to get a lower rate. In one area, you have a higher rate here, and what we had to do is take our best assessment, and that's what we're delivering you today. It's our best assessment for the Helotes community as a whole, not just paying attention to residents, but that's a huge component, let's face it, but also giving some attention to the prices of commercial businesses would have to pay for commercial services as well, but.
Okay, those were the two questions I had.
Okay, Councilman?
Okay, so I have several questions. Colleague already handled 3 of those, so I'll jump right into the other ones. So I appreciate that discussion there. Like I said, when we've discussed this before, when you introduced yourself, I don't have any problems with your service. So everything I'm doing right now, I'm echoing what the concerns that I received on the campaign trail, and most recently everything that Cedar Springs residents had brought to me. So going through this and as a council person and seeing the RFP submitted on the site without having outside of the campaign trail, the input there, several of the concerns and the questions I have was that a lot of the residents, particularly the elderly residents, are concerned about twice a week trash pickup. They don't have a need for it. In fact, they would rather have a smaller container than the 96-gallon container because they don't even fill up the 96-gallon. So I'm relaying that because, honestly, I don't have any issue with the twice a week or the recycling on the weekend. And I've actually, since I moved in 2017, purchased or rented from y'all the 96-gallon for recycling. So that's out there in the open with this. So this is all echoing from the constituents. So I would ask, is there even an opportunity to make a concession? Because I suspect it's not even an isolated issue in Cedar Springs where residents simply don't want twice a week and they'd prefer to have that smaller container like, when I lived in San Antonio, they had out there with a reduced price because these are, residents who are very likely on a fixed income. So that's the first question I have.
So you can add to this, but part of that is we get a better price overall when everybody's on the same service. And while some people may use the beans out of it and other people may not, I'm going to give you my best examples possible.
Okay.
I have solar panels, and there's months that I produce more energy than I use. I still have to pay this ridiculous fee, even though I don't use any electricity from CPS, and it's a standard basic fee, right? It's almost like taxes. And taxes is another point. If you live in a house, whether you're single, married, a family, or 3 generations living in there, you're paying taxes on the house, and garbage collection is a little bit of that. I'm not saying it's a tax, but it's the standard fee of living in the community. You've got refuse. So now George can speak to the possibilities, but as it was bid for the same service for all people. They did provide an option for everybody to be on one. The savings was very nominal.
Okay.
So that's what I was going to add to that, Councilman, was that we did provide an option to the city. It was an extra proposal that we submitted for once a week collection.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
The second question is that as I was looking through the agenda item here, I noticed at the very end, prior to the attachments, that recycling collection once a week, 96-gallon cart, because presently we have those hand held things. So does this mean that in this price that we're looking at, the 96-gallon recycling cart with the closing lid that everybody complains about with the other ones flies all over, that's going to be part of the price now?
Yes, sir. That was part of the staff, mayor and staff put together specifications. And so anyone who bid on this had to bid based upon the specs that were provided to us. And that was one of the specs that was included, was to change the recycling from the bins to the 96-gallon carts.
I appreciate that.
So every resident in the city of Helotes will now have a 96-gallon cart.
So the last question I have, and maybe it's a question, maybe it's just a statement, because, and I really thank staff and what you did for this, because you addressed, I'd probably say 85% of the complaints that we had on the campaign trail and that I've had when I was the HOA president years ago over in Cedar Springs. So the last one simply has to do with the roll-off containers, and perhaps maybe that the citizens don't understand that it is Texas legislature that provides a monopoly for waste management services at the municipal level. But that's still something that I get asked about, and even more recently with new neighbors moving in who are gutting houses in Cedar Springs. Because I'm not turning anybody in, but I've seen two. And, I don't think, to my recollection, it said C6. And so I do remember that the businesses downtown and Old Town, I'm not going to call anybody out on this, but there is a semi kind of landmark operation down there that's doing very well, and vehemently told us they wanted options and disagreed with the monopoly specifically on the commercial side. And so I don't know if that's an option or if that's something that you would consider wavering or how that would even be accomplished. But, I understand the economics in terms of, the residential services and, economies of scale. But when it comes to, several things like 500 homes and 200, or excuse me, 2 out of 500 homes in a year, get a roll-off container for gutting, I don't see where the benefit for exclusivity on that would be in terms of a contract. Just to say, no, we're not going to provide you that choice. You're going to be mandated to use this product. Whether we're not, I mean, you got market competitive rates or not, but the philosophy of providing the choice.
Well, one thing that I can add to for y'all's edification, right? I think it's important that the council always be given information that will be helpful in making decisions and whatnot. Obviously, I'm a student of the market. It's what I do. I go and I look at municipalities all over Bexar County. I'm constantly submitting requests for information regarding their garbage or solid waste contracts. And I know of only, as far as I know, there's only one city that does not include a roll-off service as part of their franchise agreement, and that city is Balcones Heights. Other than Balcones Heights, every municipality that has commercial, now there are some that don't have much commercial at all. An example of that would be Fair Oaks Ranch, for example. But even then, their contracts still read that it's an exclusive contract where they want the residents, they want the business to use their service. And to the mayor's point that he made earlier, part of the rates that are given, the lower rates, are based on the fact that there is an exclusive agreement, and that exclusivity provides that buffer to the city in terms of the pricing for the residential community at large.
Okay. And no more questions on mine. I appreciate everything you said, but so the last one is just a statement, and that's due to a letter I received in the mail. I think it was back in 2020, which I think everybody in Helotes received. It was no letterhead, unsigned. If you read into it, you can infer that it came from the city, but I believe it was with my C6 bill. So I'll make a point right now that whatever the contract is, if there's ever a rate change, the only way I'm going to approve a contract or vote for approval of the contract is if the rates come back to council first, and we get to look at it to vote. And any letters like this got to have a letterhead, and somebody has to own it, because that I felt was super inappropriate back in I believe this was in 2020. I'm not gonna call people out or make inferences in who may have or may not have been. Just those will be two things that I'll be looking at.
So one of the aspects of the RFP included how do we handle price changes which would affect by fuel surcharges, right? And Marion, you can talk about it, but basically we tied it so once a year we can review what is the price of diesel at a certain location at this point, and that is what was tied. So next year, if the price of diesel is higher, that would be relative and what would be justifying of a rate increase. Additionally, if diesel's lower, we'd be taking a look at a contract deduct in that aspect. Because if I remember correctly, one of the bumps we had back in
2008.
2008. It was a little rough where all of a sudden oil went from $30 a barrel to $150 a barrel, and everybody nobody saw that coming, and so it wasn't included in the contract, neither were price increases. So when those price increases were requested, that wasn't something I was amicable to, but it was something that was given. But I thought, well, if we're going to give it, then we need to make sure that we have a way to be able to get it back if prices fall down, if that's what it's based on, if that's the component it's based on.
So that'll be a mechanism in the contract you negotiate? Okay,
Yes.
that's it for me.
Okay, anybody else?
Okay, so my question is the communication piece, because some things are changing, like the recycle bin and the brush and bulk pickup. Are you going to handle that communication? Is the city handling it?
It's going to be a two-part. It's going to be both. The city's going to take the lead on it. The city's definitely going to take the lead on it. I feel that yes, they are a vendor that we contract, but it's still a city service. And so with RPR, with Nextdoor, with website, and also to add, with the quarterly bill, we'll have that information. But the city will take the lead on communicating and getting that information out there.
Okay, thank you.
Similar fashion to what we have before was like pulling teeth to try to figure out when your brush collection was. You couldn't find it anywhere. And now we have them posting it on C6. We have it posted on our website. We make it readily available because quite honestly, it needs to be readily available. And so
Yeah, 'cause
in
that
a
was-
similar fashion, we'll include that
Right,
information.
we have been in the past, also including it on the back of the invoice. As you know, there's a group that doesn't necessarily use social media or computers or things of that nature. And so we have the information on the back of the bill as well, so.
No, that's very good, because that's one of the complaints that I heard from residents, is that they didn't understand what charges and what was happening, and it was very frustrating for them. So I'm glad to hear that we have a plan and communication going out many ways on the invoice and online and all that. Because I want everything to be very, very clear, so that, the residents feel they're getting a service, not that, some sleight of hand is happening kind of behind closed doors or anything. So I prefer everything very transparent and upfront and easily accessible for everyone.
Sure, I think there will be in the beginning maybe some issues because we're bringing in larger recycling containers and we're doing the scheduling of the pickups. But I think as we continue our education effort and to let everybody know where the information is and where it's available, and I think we'll work through all those issues. So
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
So I want to thank all my colleagues. I've been just lining all my stuff off. I appreciate it. I still have a couple questions though. Hazardous waste, that's a new line item that's part of the service. Could you explain or talk about it a little bit?
Sure. One of the things we wanted to do is be able to have the residents of Helotes to be able to have a way to get rid of paint, electronics, items that aren't supposed to be going in your trash. And let me repeat that is not supposed to be going in your trash. Collect it, save it up. In the past, we have done annual, bring everything down here and do collection here at City Hall. We put in a line item for pricing for the different vendors to supply that. We also know what we can do it for. And so as part of this, we're being very transparent. It is our intention that the city of Helotes will take on that responsibility. There is a cost associated with it, and it will be included in the bill. There'll be basically a pass-through billing. We bill it through C6 at $1.20 a month. And then over the course of the year, when we have the collection sites, that'll cover all the collection and disposal of the hazardous materials, whether we're talking paint or solvents, oils, electronics, all the dangerous stuff, that'll be handled. And in total, that really makes it an incredibly cost-effective. We are getting increases. Important to also note that we are getting an increased amount of service in this, and the number of times we're being able to have brush pickup, the number of times we're having bulk pickup. Usually, 12 yards of bulk pickup would be like about 12 refrigerators. And you can do that 6 times a year. So that's a lot of bulk pickup. So you can handle tearing down a house just about with that over the course of a year. So an increase, and along with this cost, be able to have hazardous materials, of which we will well telegraph in advance to make that everybody aware of when that collection date will be, and still be about the same price as we are right now.
I think that's a huge benefit. The last time the city offered that 5, 6, 7 years ago, it's been a while. And I know people will argue about the need for the brush pickup and the frequency, because somebody in Brycewood, they're sitting on much smaller lots. They don't probably have the same demand signal for that. I will tell you, every house in Helotes probably has paint, has a bunch of stuff in their shed that could get rid of every year. So, I mean, that's a service that everybody will use. So I think it's a great thing personally. Was there any cost savings did we do kind of a what-if scenario when we decided to go with alternative 2 versus alternative 3? Was there any cost savings?
What we saw was that we got more service, more bang for the buck at relatively really the same cost. So when you take a look at that, it really provided what we felt, at least from the group that assessed it. And of course, it's up to you to make the decision. All we're bringing is a recommendation, which of course, to be clear, you could throw this recommendation right out the door and go with another option if you wanted. But what we looked at was what do most people do? There are certainly some elderly that barely fill up a couple HEB bags of garbage, but those are the exceptions, and that is just part of the cost of homeownership, right? And that's the aspect we look at. But when brush, most people, I've been here 17 years and I cut brush twice. And the piles were massive, but still well within the 30 yards. But you had to figure out when it's going to be, when is it coming up. If I knew that every other month on the third week, come around the first or second week, I might go ahead and trim this tree for an hour and call it good, as opposed to spending 14 hours there cutting down a massive amount, which, by the way, opens up to all sorts of vegetative issues, oak wilt and whatnot. So by having it on a regularly scheduled and multiple times, it gives people to be able to go out there and trim trees and not have to save it up and then realize, well, shoot, that's just a huge thing, and have to go hire a contractor. You could actually.
That's a good point. There's certain times when you would offer the service twice a year, and it's not the right time to actually trim your trees or your shrubs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this will be more in alignment of those folks who are really trying to take care of their backyards and their gardens. So, good point. Last two things. So the franchise fee is for the residential service. That's captured in the costs that were quoted in here, right? Part of the 25.
No,
No,
So that will be added on top of that?
yes.
correct.
Oh, okay. And then lastly, are you offering a senior discount?
Yes,
Okay, and that's like 5%?
yes, sir.
That's all I have.
Which almost takes the vast majority of the cost difference between 1 time a week and 2 times a week. That's a good chunk of it.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Councilman.
I'm good. Thank you. You guys answered all my questions.
I do have a little comment. You were saying the city was going to do the hazardous waste, but it would be, the C6 would take that money and however that works, because they're going to come pick it up, right?
No, they're not going to come pick it up. All they're doing is providing billing. We have the ability to be able to bill through our vendor, so they're going to collect the $1.20 a month on the regular bill. That will pass through, much like franchise fee, and come to us on a monthly amount. We save that up, and then we have 1 month where we call in a separate hazardous waste collection and disposal company that will be outside of a C6 contract.
Okay, so my point is this, and this is the reason that we ended up not doing it those years ago. People were coming we got a grant. It was a grant that was used. So it was kind of, a moot point at that point. It was a grant. But people from outside of the incorporated city limits were coming, and the lines were long to drop off of this hazardous waste. And we began to realize that a lot of the people who were coming were from outside of the city. So I'm wondering, when we have it, are you going to have them show where they live?
Yes, they would show a C6 bill. So they would show a C6 bill with a Helotes address.
Okay.
Along with their driver's license.
With the
This is
yes.
this is a full ID operation, regardless of where you're politically,
Well,
their ID
and
issues.
so when it gets out on next door neighbor, however, you
Right.
need to make sure that they understand that just because they have Helotes, Texas address, doesn't mean that they're in the incorporated city limits and they do not pay taxes. This is for taxpayers.
Our compliance officer sitting right there. He's the one that manages and watches it, and he will be there on site along with that hazardous waste company, along with him and probably another employer or two, depending on how busy we're getting. And part of their job will be to assure that it's actual Helotes resident and nobody else.
And a police officer needs to be standing there too, because I can just see them being irate after standing in line for 2 hours, okay?
Officer Ortiz has nothing to do that.
Okay, that's all I have to say.
Any other comments?
So I got one last comment.
Yes, sir.
So what would be my monthly bill under this new program? Factoring in, I'm not asking for senior discount, franchise fee, hazardous waste fee, and this, what would be?
So we will have our, and Marion's going to add it up right here. We have our base service amount. It's going to be the $1.20 per hazard material, and it will be the 6% franchise fee and then applicable sales tax.
What's the franchise fee, $6?
No,
6%.
6%, which is roughly $1.20.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'm good.
So we're in the neighborhood of 28, I believe is.
And how do you know if someone's a senior citizen? Like, what age group is that?
The city vets that, Councilman.
So
They-
they'll
we-
let
we-
you know.
We get, yes, ma'am, we get a notice from City Hall. I think Selena or one of the
Where's our
staff.
compliance officer?
Josh, okay. I get a notice from the compliance officer that tells me that this address is a senior citizen and you need to change their bill.
Okay,
And that's all we need. We just get it from, once we get it from y'all, we take care of it from there.
okay.
For those I met earlier, that is our city arborist, our stormwater management, our road construction design, and our public works director, compliance officer for hazmat.
Pretty cool.
Josh, my hat's off to you. This city is a better place because of you, sir. I just want to acknowledge you that. Did you come up with a, okay,
The total with the tax, the franchise, and the hazardous waste is $30.
right at $30,
$30.07.
$30.07. And I think right now we're 28.96 or something like that.
96.
28.96. So there is a slight change, but that happens in an open, it's rebid, it's 5 years down the road.
So we're getting more services.
And we're getting more services, quite honestly.
I think that horrible thing that I have to carry up there for recycling, I don't need that anymore. We can
You won't need that anymore.
No, you'll get a replacement.
do more. It's
So-
not too many
You're getting a bigger,
lines.
yeah, it's a bigger recycling.
So being in the federal government, my full-time job, we don't always go with the lowest bidder. We go with the best value. And so I'm looking at everything that's offered here. There's a lot in here, more than what we were getting before, at a nominal increase. And with the checkpoints built in to where if you have to raise your rates because of things outside your control that happen across the globe, right? There's a mechanism, and you would have to, some of that, you would have to come back to council in order to approve an increase. But there's also a checkpoint to where when things settle back down, we have to come back here again and we reassess, and we can bring that, if I understood correctly, we have that opportunity to return it back to a normal rate. Did I understand that?
On a fuel surcharge part.
On the fuel surcharge, that is an automatic. But I mean, as of right now, the way we were looking at writing the contract, that those are the automatic. Now, if council wants it to have to come back, we can look at writing the contract that
It
way.
would have to be a significant amount,
Yeah.
I would think, in my humble opinion. It'd have to be something significant, because these things fluctuate, and right, with what's going on right now,
Right.
who knows where it's gonna top off?
Right. For example, again, I track a lot of things, diesel being one of them, because we buy 750,000 gallons of it a year, so I keep a pretty good tab on it. So it's gone up from $2.75 to, I received a quote to $5.10 today. So that was within the last probably 30 days, so.
Okay.
So we have it where we do have a limit that it can't increase by a certain percentage. So after that percentage, it has to come back to council.
Okay.
It would have to come back to council for that approval. Plus, we also have it, before it was where the change would happen within 30 days notice. Now we have it where it's a longer notice so that we can notify residents of that rate change. because that was one of the complaints that we had with a lot of residents, that they didn't get notification, including our commercial customers, our commercial businesses, that they didn't get the rate change in enough time. And so we're having that so that we can notify.
Okay. I'm good.
Any other comments? Well, no further discussion. All in favor of approving? We are on item number 7 here as written. Say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And thank you for, what's this make? 17 years?
This new contract will start going into 19 years.
Going into 19 years. And you got it by competitive bid, so that says something. And it was competitive, let me tell you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. All right, looking for a motion and a second for discuss and take action on item number 8 as written.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we discuss and take action on item number 8 as written.
We have a taker.
I'll second
And
that.
Sanders, okay, this is Sanders. Okay, go ahead.
So I'm assuming, from what I read, they still have to get the approval from TxDOT to do this, is that correct?
They are working with TxDOT, particularly at the intersection to cross Bandera Road. They're coming southbound into Old Town Helotes. There's a stop there that kind of puts us on the map. We're on both the 60-mile and the 100-mile race course. And then they'll cross over, coming out of Old Town Helotes, get across Highway 16 and then head up to Scenic Loop and then take a right on Scenic Loop and head all the way out towards.
This is on a Sunday, correct?
This
That is correct.
Sunday.
Okay.
And they know to minimize traffic, but without a doubt, we don't have authority over State Highway 16, so they are still having to comply with TxDOT, and we will coordinate with what is requested.
Right, and what TxDOT requires is that a resolution that the entity that the highway goes over, that we are aware of it. So basically, our resolution is basically saying, we're aware of it, we understand, we're good with it, and that it's contingent on TxDOT approving it. So if TxDOT doesn't approve it, then this is not going to go forward.
It's a little bit of chicken and the egg. They're not going to approve it unless we say it's okay. We can't say it's okay until they say, yeah, we're good with it. And so somebody's got to go first. And so the way it goes is we say, yeah, and then they chime in and give it their blessing. For those that don't know, this is the only, La Top will be the only road race in America that is part of the Tour de France organization. So they do international races, and obviously it's an incredible honor to be a part of this. This will be getting coverage through ESPN, the networks, all the sports cable, and hopefully our local media does a good job with it, but the national media will be on here, and it will really put us on the map. And Helotes will now be a central stop. And of course, there'll be training and people coming out here, so we anticipate a lot of people coming into the community as a result of this. And of course, it doesn't hurt to have a little national exposure there for our fine city.
I got to repeat a question I asked, and I can't remember what the answer was a few months back. So will our first responders be part of this process? Or I seem to remember they weren't going to be asked to participate, but am I wrong?
So our public safety, our police officers, they are going to be part of a group of what, they'll be hired. So whoever's available in our police department that is not on duty and so forth, they will be hired.
Okay.
They'll be hired with others, other SAPD, other police officers from other entities. So they will be part of that group.
La Top picks up the bill for all of this.
Yes.
And it's nothing that we're forking out except for hosting it, if you will. But we won't be paying for the police officers that will be using. So they're providing they're providing for.
Okay,
We make them available, they pay for
And
them,
they hire them.
and they hire them.
that's all I had.
Yeah, that was going to be my question is if it was going to incur, well, I guess I can ask, is it going to incur any other costs?
There will be no cost to the city.
No cost to the city.
Okay.
Anybody else?
It's a great organization. Let's do it.
Okay. No other questions? All in favor of approving item number 8 as written, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Need to include that in state of the city, remind me. Okay, brings us to item number 9, looking for a motion and a second to discuss and take action on number 9 as written.
I move that we discuss and take action on item number 9.
Excellent, Salzar. Second by
I'll second it.
Anders. Excellent. Ms. Marver.
Okay, so as the liaison to the Planning and Zoning Committee, I either attend meetings or if I can't, I watch them right afterwards to stay up on what they're doing. And just my opinion is that they do an outstanding job. They leave no stone unturned, no question unasked. And I love that because that's exactly what they're supposed to do. So I like the idea that for items that don't need a variance, that they would be able to go ahead and be the authority for lights and signs. I think that speeds things up for businesses. Instead of them having to get approval through planning and zoning and then come here where we're just going to approve it anyways. It just makes a lot of sense to cut down the time, cut down the paperwork, and, if they're operating within our current ordinances, why shouldn't they just be able to go to P&Z and get approval and move forward?
Excellent. Councilmember?
So we had this discussion last meeting or the meeting before, and so it makes sense to me, and I'm all for putting the authority at the appropriate level for the right topics. And so the way this is written, I support it 100%.
So I'll echo what my colleagues have said. I mean, these are commissioners, they're not an advisory board. And to re-empower them, especially with the group that we have on there now and their depth of knowledge, I wholeheartedly support this. I think we have enough oversight, as council, to go ahead and re-empower them. So this is very welcome, in my opinion.
Councilmember?
Oh, this is great. Welcoming and long overdue.
Ditto. I'm done.
For those that aren't exactly sure what we're talking about here, my little handy dandy, if the ordinance says that you can have a sign this big and you're submitting a permit for a sign that's that big within, and there's nothing wrong with the sign, we're saying that planning and zoning can approve it as opposed to just recommend it for approval, and then they have to wait 2 more weeks until it comes to city council for city council to look at it and say, yep, it's in accordance with, it's approved. It's just kind of a redundant process, and we trust our P&Z. Now, I do want to make something clear. If P&Z decides against and denies a request, applicants can appeal to city council. If it is a sign that is this big, is what's allowed, and they're requesting a sign that big, that would require a variance. There's certain allowances that they're allowed to go over size. All they can do is recommend at that point. They wouldn't be able to approve a variance. They would recommend for or against, and then it would go through the process that we have right now where it comes to city council. So the only thing that we're giving up is empowering them to make a decision on a sign that our ordinances already says
Yeah.
they can have. So it seemed to be a no-brainer, but the decision is up to yours. Any other inputs? If not, all in favor of approving item number 9 is written, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, thank you for hanging in. At this point, we are actually going to adjourn into closed session in accordance with Texas Government Code 551.074 personnel matters to discuss the candidate qualifications for the position of City of Helotes Economic Development Corporation Executive Director. It is, by real time, 8:09.
Let me notes. Okay, we're good.
All right, we're good. We are back in session. It is 8:37. There were no decisions made in executive session. We will resume with looking for a motion, a second, for discussion and action. Item number 11 is written.
Mr. Mayor, I motion that we discuss and take action on item number 11A and 11B. Wait, separate them again? Like we did last time?
Sure. We'll take each one of them separately, but opening it up for action, that's fine. Second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any comments?
Absolutely appreciate everybody who's worked on this process, from staff, council colleagues, the Helotes Economic Development Corporation Board of Directors. It's taken a few months, a lot of good input, and it was very collaborative. So I think it's a good start, and see where it goes.
Okay.
I've got nothing else to add. We've all been kind of pulling in this direction, and we've had a lot of good dialogue and discussions, and it's taken a few iterations, and I think we're where we need to be. So let's vote.
Yeah, I agree.
Nothing to add.
This council, this past year, we have addressed a number of issues that help clarify and eliminate conflicts of interest, establish order, and do what is right. And this first item that we were going to be voting on embodies that by releasing our city administrator from the executive director position. Without any additional questions, all in favor of approving item number 11A as written, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, and now we are moving on to item number 11B. Does anybody have any specific questions or comments on 11B? Okay. All in favor of approving item number 11B, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. And with that, we will adjourn the meeting. Time is 8:40.